All right, guys. Thanks for joining us here, NCRHA Coast to Coast. I'm Kevin Smith. I'm joined by Sean Lapp from UMass. Sean, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
Pretty good. Doing good, man. And then Christian Scott is going to be with us as well. He's one of the coaches. Are you the head coach technically, Christian, or just co-coach?
No, I'm technically the head coach, but I act like a co-coach.
Acts like a co-coach.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing. What's up?
Young head coach.
Young head coach.
Well, welcome, Christian. Great to have you here. You are one of the original founding fathers of the Coast to Coast summer teams.
Yep.
Which we were kind of discussing a little bit earlier. We're gonna have some teams heading to NCRHA West in Irvine, California, Orange County, about 15-20 minutes from the beach. Good spot to be in. And we're also, yeah, it's awesome. It's lovely. And we're also gonna do a little tours action in Florida. I think that tournament this year is going to be significantly better than it was last year, just because, it was a brand new facility. They were still trying to figure out work some kinks out, I think. And I know from being on the back end that they had some issues making sure that those doors in the back were staying shut. And anybody that knows Florida, and I mean, a lot of people that are probably listening to this remember the first Fort Myers NCRHA tournament like 4 or 5 years ago. And the humidity was so bad. A couple guys had ankles or like MCLs that got messed up. It was pretty rough. So they figured that out. Obviously, we had Fort Myers last year. I think that went pretty well. No one will argue that. You just got to keep those, one entrance and keep the rest of it sealed, because otherwise you get that condensation on the floor. And they saw that last year. So now I think they're going to have that figured out. And this venue, guys, is unreal. It's like a little arena almost, but it's only a couple rows up. So I don't know for sure. Christian, I heard that there's a rink. Is it Murraysville maybe, that has like an arena set up kind of like that?
Yep, yeah, it's just half an arena, but yeah, they have arena seating.
So it's kind of exactly. So it's kind of like that. So you feel like you're playing in an arena, but when you're on the floor, like you look up and it feels like you're in, like a USHL or NA, but the seating's only a couple rows up, so it's easy to pack it. And that's obviously when you play in the big arenas, like if you go to Germain or wherever, it's always cool, or Toronto, it's always cool to skate on those floors, but you don't, it's empty. Like,
oh yeah.
So
I remember they had that at Philly for Nationals a couple years ago. They had like that seating like that. I remember Newman played the won championship. It was pretty sweet.
At Aston, yeah, that was really cool.
Had the same seating.
Yeah, so similar setup. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking to field junior and men's teams at all levels for both those. And then, if there's interest to do NCRHA East as well, we'd love to send some teams out to the cooler in Atlanta. So we're going to be putting out.
It's a blast.
Yeah, should be a good time. 25th anniversary for NCRHA this year. So we'll have that info out, if not tonight, by tomorrow. So that way guys can start working on that this weekend. And we want to get those teams set in stone, by the first week of June at the latest. Hopefully even, Memorial Day weekend. So we're looking forward to that. And then, we've got a bunch of topics today to discuss. We've had a lot of talk on Twitter, some really good discussion. And I think we'll kind of jump right in. I'm going to go down the list, and we can kind of go over some of these. One sec here, and we're going to pull that up.
First is credit checks and GPA requirements.
Yeah, so let's start with Sean. Sean, you're still a student.
Yeah.
what are your initial thoughts when you hear, let's say GPA requirements first, because I do want to make sure that it's known the NCRHA does do credit checks, right? So it's not this isn't something that doesn't already happen, or not credit checks, but they do enrollment verification, right? So essentially it is a credit check. If you look at the sheet on the NCRHA website, they have your registrar fill it out. They're supposed to send it directly to the league and not give it back to the club, so it can't be tampered with or anything like that. And then basically that is done one time in the first semester. It's done before nationals. I don't know if it's done at the start of the second semester or just before nationals. So
we send that in right before nationals and right at the beginning of the regular season.
Right. So maybe you could add one more in there, but I mean, I think it really just depends on what, the goals are. I mean, I think ideally you're trying to avoid guys dropping their classes, basically signing up, getting, having someone sign off on it, and then the next day drop.
Yeah.
And I think, I do want to put value on that because, if you want to play go play AIH, I want to go out, but we do have to kind of make sure that we keep the integrity of the league as strong as possible and keep it, make sure that it's student athletes playing. So all that said, I think the background's important for people that don't maybe know how the process actually works. So let's go to Sean first and then Christian. In terms of GPA requirements, how do you guys feel about that? Is that something that the league should be enforcing, or something that individual schools should take up as some already do? What are your thoughts?
So I like the idea of a GPA check. I think credit checks should probably happen 3 times a year. Beginning of the fall semester, beginning of the spring semester, and then again right before nationals after, schools pass their ad drop periods, stuff like that. It keeps players honest, lets people know you're still a student athlete, you're going to school, and then hockey comes second, same as the NCAA, same as club hockey, all that stuff. Even if you set a minimum GPA at a 2, make sure kids aren't failing classes and strictly focus on hockey, because there are some schools that practice every day, some schools practice once a week, so time commitment varies. But just make sure that kids are staying on the up and up, and yeah, you want to see players be students on top of being successful at roller hockey. So I think both are pretty good, valid rules that could be implemented and pretty easily enforced.
I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think that it's not rocket science to do this. It's just a matter of coming up with the proper way to implement it. And that's really what it comes down to. Christian, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, Slippery Rock has, I'm sure most schools do too. I think we have a 2.0 GPA, which I think we have to take at least 9 credits to play in a club sport. So I'm sure, I think that's what the league is too, at 9, right? But no, I think it's definitely has to.
It's
integrity. Yeah. Is
it 9 or 9 or 12? I know it's 6 for junior college, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I know ours is just 9 for if you want to play a club sport.
Okay.
But yeah, no, definitely. You should definitely, have those type of rules. I mean, sometimes they're a pain, but you definitely got to have some type of rules to keep, then it'd just be a glorified adult league. So you definitely got to have that stuff, because I know NCAA, ice hockey, all that has it too. So it works out for them. But yeah, it's definitely a must.
I think so too. I think it's important to be able to,
I think the league does a good job. I mean, I never really hear too many issues of, I never hear of any issues of players getting caught. At least I don't hear about it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. We're now joined too by Jim Tamburino. Jim, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Sorry for the delay.
My quick rule.
Yeah.
Talking about?
Yeah, go.
I apologize.
No worries. Go.
I said no fun being an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, man.
So, I don't. Do you guys have Pie Hall? I don't know if that's in the West. Is it? I don't know if the Pie Hall the league. But
yeah, we do. We do have we have AIHL out here. That's more prevalent. They have Pie Hall. I know in the West.
Okay, gotcha. But this year, which I really liked about what they did, because it was always like growing up playing ice and stuff. I always like the speed of ice. 100% all the time. Get off, changing. But I mean, rollers, obviously very quick game as well. Go from a breakaway to giving up a breakaway. But I like this year they did a rule where you can't stop behind the net. You got to keep your feet moving, the puck moving, and if you do, it's just a warning net first. And then after that, it does become a minor penalty, and it really did keep the game flowing. I know there's been many times, at least in NCRHA, where in the history of like Newman, now Farmingdale, but Newman back in the day, where they would hold the puck so long. Like I remember they were playing Hofstra, and two kids literally sat down on the rink because they couldn't get the puck, and they just sat behind the net. So I like that rule a lot.
So how would you? So real quick, what would the implementation be? How would you enforce it? Like, is there a certain amount of seconds or?
No, you just can't stop at all. You have to be moving at all times. If you stop, you can obviously stop and go the opposite way, but if you stop and rest for even a second or two, the ref will just blow. I mean, it's obviously a discussion call. The ref will blow a whistle, blah blah blah. So yeah, like the first time it's just a warning, offensive face offs, and then it is like the first weekend, teams got called for it quite often.
Okay. Yeah.
Now they don't. So.
Go ahead. All right, Christian Scott. I appreciate you coming on and on limited time, taking a little break from work. Let's go to Jim. Jim, what are your thoughts there on what Christian had to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about that rule, and I heard from a few of the guys that play in Paiha regarding the rule, and I think it goes both ways. Personally, I don't like it because I don't think that's hockey, where you're not allowed to stop behind your net. I mean, that's part of the game in my eyes. But at the same time, you don't want guys sitting back there too long. So I like if there's a 5-second rule, whatever it may be, the amount of seconds. But, I mean, I don't agree with not being allowed to stop behind that net at all. And, taking a breather, getting ready for your breakout, taking a look at the rink, making a hockey play. I mean, I don't think we could take that out of the game. But at the same time, there should be a limit for sure.
Yeah, that's good input. I think that well, let's go to Sean before I won't even add anything. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually glad Christian brought that up because I was thinking the same thing. I hadn't played Paiha, but I heard about the rule and I really like it. Just stopping behind the net, maybe a little extreme, but I think it's definitely a good starting point to speed the games up and not get away from some of these teams that have guys Ironman the whole game, the whole 3 periods. Kind of give a little bit more of a nod to teams with a little bit deeper roster, stuff like that. Keeps the game flowing more. I think it would definitely keep the game faster and maybe I don't like how some teams can just sit there for minutes on end and run 2 minutes off the clock without anyone losing any energy. So. But I would also agree that maybe a limit would be imposed, like 5 seconds, something like that. Like you saw it in our pro, because it is kind of hard to enforce just no stopping at all.
Well, I think that's when you start getting into, what do you want it's kind of more of a philosophical question in terms of the game, right? So do you want to put the onus on the team with the puck to advance it or on the defensive team to come and get it? And this is something that gets debated in roller hockey and has been debated for a while. You have kind of the idea of playing a box, in basketball, you have the backcourt defense rule. So, do you put the onus on the team playing defense to say forecheck a guy, like they have to play a 1-3 or something like that. But until the puck comes over the red line or over, say, a certain spot, whether it be like, you know, the neutral zone, if there were blue lines hypothetically or whatever it is. I mean, you know, then you get into like, what if a rink doesn't have that? We have to put that down. Or, I mean, now we're getting into how is it implemented and like the, you know, the constraints on that. But like putting all that aside, if we're just talking about the game and, you know, how we would want to see it if we didn't have any limits on implementing it, is that something that would make sense? Like, do you put the onus on the team playing defense so they don't have to just sit back there? They've got to maybe try to pressure the puck out. And then once the puck comes over, you know, out of that their defensive zone or past the center line, then you can box up or whatever? Or is it on the team with the puck that they need to advance it?
I would say, I mean, I think keep putting the rule like that, not being able to stop, you know, it makes forecheck a bit easier for the team, you know, defending without the puck. The forecheck becomes a lot easier. You don't have time to break out, but it also gives guys more sense of urgency getting back too. So you see a little bit more check from the team with the puck, so they can have a quicker breakout and move up the ice faster. I've also heard rules of guys propose rules where if they go past the red line, like on a delayed penalty, go past the red line, you can't bring it back. Maybe something like that. So would
that be something that you? So okay, so would you not be able to bring it back like at all? Like even you're saying even strength potentially?
I've heard that rule. I'm not sure if I go one way or the other on it, but I think that may be something that could be imposed instead of, you know, not stopping behind the net to, you know, keep the game flowing, keep more offense, you know, get more offense, and maybe cause more turnovers because you know, as much as we love those possession teams that hold the puck for 10 out of 12 minutes in the period, you know, you want to be able to cause turnovers defensively, and it's unfortunately sometimes it's really hard to do when you just sit behind the net or take it up to the red line, turn back, and then that's it, and then rinse repeat for another 3 minutes. So, you know, I think it allows the forecheckers to have a bit more time and a little bit more leeway to cause some turnovers and cause a little more havoc back there, which I know some roller hockey purists may not like that chaos, but I think it adds a little more fun aspect to it. I think it'd be interesting to see how some teams adjust their systems to that sort of rule, because I think the most skilled players and the most, you know, the fast players, the guys with good puck control, will still thrive in that kind of game situation. So.
Well, that's okay. So to that point, and I won't speak for Jim, we'll ask him himself, but I think, and he might agree with me, I'm speculating here, but I think that comes into part of the reason that happens. Obviously, you have teams that are a lot stronger than some of the other teams, but you know, one of the reasons that that's the case is because we don't have, throughout the league, there are a lot of guys that are, you know, either parents that are volunteering to coach in D1 because they want to make sure that they have that requirement box checked off. Maybe you have guys that are former players that are coaching. I guess ultimately what I'm getting at is you have a lot of guys that haven't played at a roller hockey at a high level when they were younger. Maybe they're ice hockey guys coming in or whatever the case may be. But there aren't a lot of resources out there, coaching resources for roller hockey to learn, say, different strategies and things like that. You know, it's not like you have in USA Hockey where you have all those resources you can go through and become, say, like a level 5. You go to do your master's coaching thing. You have to present a thesis, things like that. That basically, you know, if there's not a way to learn new strategies or learn how to implement them, it kind of becomes like it's passed down by word of mouth type thing. And if nobody ever taught it to you, then you're not able to, say, pass it on to somebody else. And I think that's kind of what you see a lot of the time is teams just, they don't necessarily know how to play roller hockey besides, you know, whatever some guy taught them when they were a kid who was really just learning from an ice hockey book himself.
Yeah.
or maybe like a 90s guide to roller hockey when, you know, skates were different and guys couldn't stop and whatever. So I don't know. That's part of it to me, is that like, we don't have to change the rules so much. More so, we need to make sure that people have the resources so they can get better and learn how to play the game properly. But Jim, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And as far as, you know, styles of play and, you know, making the game faster and preventing teams from, you know, sitting behind the net, I mean, there's a few things there. Again, I like the rule of adding, I guess, like a 5-second rule, whatever it may be, just to get the game moving. Because I'll be honest, you know, as much as I love this game and coaching, playing, everything, all these years, to be honest, at times it's boring to watch, you know, and even when you watch the high level pro tournament divisions and the teams that possess the puck, Team USA's, it's not exactly exciting to watch all the time because it's all puck possession and the game's slowed down so much. And you always hear the comments that roller hockey's so much faster than ice, and I don't agree with that at all. I think it's a slower game, and at times it does get kind of boring, you know, when the teams are really skilled and they control the puck the whole game. And I almost like the idea of not being able to pull the puck back all the time and speeding it up, causing turnovers, causing transitions and battles. And I think roller hockey needs more of that. I think it needs more battling. It needs more aggression. It needs more one-on-one battles, and just like more of that compete atmosphere. Whereas, you know, holding the puck all game and bringing it back, it's boring at times. And as great as the game is, and as much as we all love it, I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. And even with us, you know, this year with Farmingdale, I mean, I'll be honest right here. When we didn't have the puck, halfway through our season, we felt we weren't playing the right way, and we felt we could be a lot stronger than what we were as far as style went. And we literally started to tell our guys, forget about roller hockey. When the other team has the puck, if they set up behind the net, chase them down. And if he gets out and he starts skating, catch up to him, or the next guy catch up to him, and then switch guys after that. And just don't stop moving your feet. Chase. Dig out the pucks, battle. And to be honest, like, yes, we thought we could do that because of all the skill level we had, but at the same time, it's a better game that way. It's more exciting for us as coaches. It's more exciting for people watching, and it's more exciting for the players. And obviously, you need the type of guys to be able to play that way, of course. But again, I bring that up just because I feel the game does need to be more exciting. We need to figure out ways to make it more exciting.
Yeah, I agree.
Ahead, John.
Oh, yeah. I 100% agree. Yeah. It's hard, especially for a school team. You want to gain support from your friends, your classmates, the school, whatever. No one wants to watch a one-camera national stream when someone's sitting behind the net for a couple minutes and not much action's going on. So, yeah, it would make the game more exciting. It might generate more interest in the sport, generate more interest from the schools. And, yeah, I agree. It's tough to play against, and especially coming from an ice hockey school where guys didn't grow up playing roller hockey. I think the kind of system that you guys play is very hard to play against, but it lends itself to guys transitioning to roller hockey from ice hockey because that has to keep your feet moving, keep grinding, and chasing guys down. So, yeah, I agree.
And, you know, to add to that, it really worked for us this year. I know we had a lot of talent on our team, and I'm not talking about so much about the talent level, but as far as like the system, we tried to convince them to play this second semester. They all bought in right away because pretty much all of them play for our ice hockey team as well. So they all want to play that way. And, you know, they like that fast pace, chasing guys down and keeping the game moving just as much as, you know, they know they could easily just slow it down and, you know, play the game the right way, apparently. But I always like to do things a little different, and I was honestly glad that they bought into playing that way because I wasn't sure how they were going to take it. But they bought in, and it worked for us, and it's, in my eyes, definitely a more exciting way to play for sure.
I think everything that was said there, I agree with. You got to find that equilibrium where you're not you don't want to tweak things too much, but we have to figure out a way to make it more exciting. And, when obviously we've got in some areas, some markets, you've got a lot of roller hockey guys still, but in other areas, the growth of this league and more teams and more players is going to be pretty dependent on getting ice hockey guys that are, hanging up their ice skates or maybe playing beer league or trying to balance their school schedule with ACHA. And we want to make sure that when they see roller hockey, whatever their first taste of it is, it needs to be something that they're excited about and they say, I want to go do this. And if the first thing they see at quote unquote high level roller hockey is, a guy sitting behind his net for a minute, then yeah, it's not going to be something that is very palatable for somebody coming from that environment. And don't get me wrong, like I said, you don't want to change everything and we don't want to turn it into ice hockey, but that doesn't mean that we can't, make some changes along the way. That said, I think that's a good segue. We had another really good one that got some good debate on Twitter. Chris Johnston sent in an idea. He tweeted us yesterday when we were an intro into this and kind of getting the discussion going a day in advance, if you will. And he said, matching pant colors for the rest of the divisions. I get the funding is tough, but it looks better and doesn't make it look like a beer league. There was some a lot of agreement. There was some opposition to that. We had Evan Dressel who disagreed. He said it's hard to convince guys to play who don't have a ton of money if they have to buy stuff that they won't ever use again. They don't see it as worth it. It would cause teams to not be able to field teams in the long run. And then we had somebody from Cal State Fullerton say, no, that's a horrible idea. Most schools hardly fund their teams and most college kids are broke. Would only make it harder to bring people into the game. We had, some arguments with that. AJ Frey saying if you can't afford, a $30 pair of pants, like maybe you shouldn't be playing hockey. Whatever. It got into, it got a little heated, I guess you could say. But, my comment to that is if you're watching ice hockey and guys don't have matching socks, I mean, you instantly think it's a joke. Like, why are we lowering the bar for roller hockey? We can figure out a way to make it work. And I don't know. Go ahead.
I think it's absolutely time to move past that, and we need to set the bar. It's to me, it's all about credibility and presentation, especially at this point. We're talking 20 years now. And yes, I know there's new schools and they're not familiar with how everything works, but for a league standpoint and for what the league's trying to do at this point, we need to set the bar. And, if other teams can't hack it, I mean, yes, I don't want to lose teams. I don't want to lose players. We need growth. But at this point, if we can't have the right credibility and the right presentation, I think that comes first. And we need to figure out a way. I mean, as far as just getting teams to wear the same pants, I mean, we need to make that happen. I think it's so important for the presentation of the league, the credibility, just a little detail like that. And I can go on and on about details, and you and I have had this conversation before. And I just think that's tremendously important at this point. Early on, the league was building up. Sure, I get it. But at this point, I think it's past that point, and moving forward, I think it would be a nice step for the league to do something like that.
Sean?
Yeah, I agree. I would even maybe give a little more leeway. If you want to go to nationals, you got to have it's jerseys, 2 jerseys and a pair of pants. I mean, it's not that much. Yeah, I know it can get costly depending on what you're getting, but I mean, you want to play at nationals. Nationals cost extra money from the school. Patch your uniforms. Like it's not that hard. Yeah, not much else, but I think it looks more professional. Yeah, you don't want to look like Bush League. Yeah.
Right, and that goes from uniforms to the way your bench looks. If you have coaches, if you don't, if you do, what they're wearing, how your team presents yourself. I mean, it goes right down the line. So I feel like if teams can't make efforts to make sure they have the same pants, what is the rest of their program going to look like? And I mean, maybe I'm wrong for saying that, but at the end of the day, like we need to do things right. The simple things need to be right. And it goes a long way. It might sound like a ridiculous detail, but those little details go a long way.
Yeah, and we're not saying buy new pants, buy new gloves, buy a whole new helmet, whatever. Like that can run you a good amount of money in addition to the rest of your uniform. It's just pants and a jersey. It's the same as ice hockey. You get jerseys and socks. Sometimes it's not that much extra.
No, and there are ways to make it work. I mean, whether that means that we work out a deal, the league works out a deal with a manufacturer and gets, an all black basic no logo pant option. I mean, whatever it is, like there are ways that we can do it. And I think, but I mean, the way I was looking at it too, like say you have, obviously we know how prevalent social media is, and a lot of people, their first experience with the league is going to be seeing a picture, a video on social media. So if you're clicking through social media and one of your buddies, you're a nice guy, one of your buddies is playing college roller, and you see that's what you see is 7 different pairs of pants. The colors are not even, they're complete. You're wearing the same color pants as the team you're playing against. I don't know. I just feel like it's one of those things that, like you guys said, we got to figure out a way to make it look better, because obviously presentation's key, and then that first impression is crucial as we move forward. I'm glad there's some agreement on that, and I think that that's something that could be implemented relatively easily. I would imagine that a lot of teams already do have that, at least in D2. D3, I could see where some people might think that there are issues, but same deal. I think that there are ways to do it, even if it means getting a pair of sweatpants and you go to Walmart and suck it up and sweat it out. But I think that there's a way to make that happen. Let's keep going down the list. I think, or you know what? We'll go one more on here, and then we can go to some messages that we've had. I know we've got some tweets and comments. So let's talk about league dress code. I know, Jim, this is something that you had brought up and you just touched on a little bit. Do you think, obviously on the bench, I kind of echo what you're saying. I think that the dress code could be implemented a little bit better, possibly. I know you had mentioned something about possibly players too. So do you think that's something that should be conference by conference, or should that be imposed nationally, or what are your thoughts on that? You can kind of elaborate.
Well, as far as coaches go, I think absolutely. I think, again, at this point, what the league's trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, we're trying to attach certain sponsors possibly and grow this sport. From the coaching standpoint, absolutely, across the board. I don't see why we can do it for a week at nationals, but not the rest of the year. On top of that, a good example is, you have a sponsor come down to a rink and they're looking across the rink and you see a guy in a hoodie. He's got a backwards hat on, or a hat to the side even, whatever it may be. It's not the look that the league needs. And, we're much better than that at this point. And I just feel like there's no excuse at all not to have coaching dress code. And, when you have someone like Bobby Ryan watching our games online and he looks at teams and they're all in uniform and he looks across the benches and the coaches are in shirt and ties and, it looks like a legit college sport, we have a good backing from someone like Bobby Ryan. If he looks across and he sees guys in hoodies and whatever else you see out there, it looks like a joke, and that's the truth. So I think at this point, coaching staff, absolutely. I don't see why we can't do that. And if there are coaches out there that have a problem with that, they're the wrong guys. And I'm just being honest here. If that's their mentality, it's wrong for our sport, especially at the collegiate level, because we all know it's a lot more than just the game of roller hockey. And, you know, playing college sport and being a part of a college program is so much more than that. As far as teams go, I know that's a stretch. I'd like to see it personally. I mean, from the day I was a player in this league all the way back to 2002, I had a dress code for my team, and all the teams I've coached, we pretty much have had a dress code. Farmingdale, not so much. You know, I'm only there 2 years now. We're slowly implementing things, but we'd like to get there. We'd like to order new warm-up suits. The ice hockey guys have their warm-up suits, so eventually we're trying to get there. And we're taking steps in that direction. But I do think it would be great for the league. I know a lot of teams wouldn't want to go for it, but I mean, it's something to definitely discuss, I think. And again, at this point, with credibility and everything we're trying to do, maybe it's a good idea.
Sean, as a player, I would love to hear your thoughts there.
I 100% agree on the coaches. We had a player or we had a student coach our team this year, one of my roommates, and he dressed presentable in every game, even if they were nice jeans and a nice pair of sneakers, but he always wore a collared shirt, sweater vest, something like that. Coaches 100%, they need to look presentable across the bench. League game, all the way from preseason to nationals. There's no excuse for that. Players coming into the ranks. Yeah, I can see it. Maybe like a polo or something. But as a player, I do like going to a 7 o'clock game. I don't want to wear more than sweatpants and a t-shirt because then we're driving home 6 hours from Feasterville. But and also some of the rinks, you know, they don't have showers, so you don't want to be dressing up too nice because you're just going home sweaty anyway. So some of it, yeah, maybe at Division I, I could see dress codes for players coming to games. But, you know, I could take it or leave it personally for players, but coaches, definitely. Coaches and officials of the league at the rink, the scorekeepers, you know, stuff like that, should definitely look presentable.
Yeah, I think that's that part's a no-brainer. And then, yeah, I mean, even if it's just you've got to wear team apparel or something like that, like, you know, you can wear a warm-up, you can maybe go that route. But the coaches thing is definitely a good starting place and something that I think that's another one that could probably be implemented. What do you guys think about actually, let's go to some of the comments. We're going to go to Twitter and we'll check Facebook as well. For everybody that is wanting to get in on the conversation, you can get us on Twitter at NCRHA _C, the number 2C, Facebook.com/NCRHAC, the number 2C, and get in on the comments, or feel free to text your thoughts to 520-261-6153, and we can go that route as well. So we're gonna check Twitter right here. We've got Steven Jastro, a great goalie, a Temple alum, former NCRHA Coast to Coast summer team player as well. He said GPA requirements and dress code. Yikes. That is player opinion. Let's see what else.
Could I just say something about GPA? I know I said that early on, but I don't know if it was mentioned, but the ACHA has a 2.0 GPA requirement. So I'm not understanding why we can't do that, you know, and I know, you know, it's going to go back and forth all day, you know, with debate. You know, some players want it, some players don't. Some schools want it, some schools don't. But again, with credibility is the topic, and if this league's trying to go in the right direction and do the right thing, especially from a parent's perspective, I don't see why we can't do the same thing that the ACHA does.
2.0 is a C average. So, yeah, I agree. I don't know.
I mean, most people are on academic probation if you're under a 2.0. I mean, at every school that I know of. So,
right.
The question is, when is that checked? Is it checked before every event? I don't know how that process works in the ACHA. So then that's really all it comes down to is implementation. Do you know, Jim, do you know anything more about that?
I'm not sure. I want to look more into it. I mean, I'm involved with the ice hockey team the last 2 years here at Farmingdale, but I haven't really looked into that. So I'd like to, just to see and, become educated. But I think it would be nice if we could step into that direction at some point. I'm not saying right away, but eventually, if we can reach that point, I think that would bring the league to a whole other level. And again, from like a parent's perspective, and we talk about recruitment and that's what parents want to hear. And I'll tell you right now, we have 9 guys in our roller hockey program that play for the ice team, and they all have to meet that requirement. And 8 of those guys are on our D1 team, and so they all need to meet that requirement. And otherwise they weren't going to Fargo. They couldn't do anything. So it would be nice to see if we can all go and move forward in that direction.
Seems pretty reasonable. Something I want to draw attention to too is that a lot of these things can be discussed, and that's important, but in terms of actual implementation, none of that will actually happen unless people propose these rules. So I'm gonna pull up here the form. So if you go to ncrha.org, in the stories slideshow, there's a story that talks about your divisional application and rule change proposals. It's also in the documents tab if you go over to the far right side of the top bar. But we'll show you kind of what it takes, if you will, to do this. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's definitely not rocket science. This is kind of what we're looking at. So you basically have to find where that rule is, if there is a rule already, that you're adjusting, or just any basically the wording of your rule and how you would want it to be implemented. If there's maybe something you're not quite sure about, you could always submit a second version of it and just have a slight variation, because sometimes a good rule will get proposed, but the thing holding it back is something that has to do with how it would be implemented, or just a certain piece of it that doesn't sit well with the board. So this form is, as I mentioned, available online, but all these things are important if we want to actually see any of these changes made. Then these rules have to get proposed, and you can see right here that the deadline is Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern to submit this. Now, if you have questions, you can contact NCRHA Coast to Coast directly. You can contact the league as well, but we're willing to help people format their rule change proposals if you have one that you'd like to submit. So there's that. I don't know. Actually, here's the form. I'm not sure if everybody else was able to see it or not, but now you can. So there's that, and we will keep going here. We haven't had too much action on Twitter. Some people kind of echoing the minimum GPA. I'm sure that once again I could see that becoming. I see that as one of those things that people might, complain about right away, but ultimately, everybody would play by the rules and jump on board with that. People want to play, so let's keep going down the list here. We've got a few other topics that I'd like to get to, and real quick, we've got let's talk about transfer eligibility. So I know obviously this is something that came up in the ECRHA this year. It's come up in many conferences historically, in terms of guys transferring second semester. should there be a waiting period when you transfer, as a lot of other sports do? Now, I don't know the ACHA rule on that. I believe you have to sit out a semester, but I could be wrong. So should there be a rule for that? If so, what should it be? The most common kind of submissions for that we had heard of, or the most common version of that would be just sitting out one semester. So if you transfer, if your first semester at a school is going to be in the fall, then you sit that semester out and you're eligible for the spring. Vice versa, if you transfer and your first semester is going to be in the spring, you sit out the spring, you can play the next fall. So I'll throw it to Sean as a player, and then we can go to Jim. But Sean, what are your initial thoughts there? And is that something that the league should hop on, or is that something that just doesn't make sense given kind of the current state of things and where the sport's at?
I think there should be some sort of transfer rule. NCAA, I know, is like a year you have to sit out. If you transfer schools, it's your redshirt year. I don't think it needs to be that extreme for roller, but definitely a semester. You transfer out in the fall. You don't play the spring. Like you have to complete a semester at the school before you can start playing for them. You practice with the team, whatever. But I think if you want if it's not like club, it's not like club roller. It's not a club team, like a travel team, whatever. You can't just switch teams whenever you want. Like you go to school, you're a student athlete first. Same requirements should be had. You can't just transfer schools for whatever reason to go play. I think there should be some sort of penalty for players transferring, just at least to discourage players just transferring. Oh, my team stinks, whatever, leave. I don't want to play D2 anymore. I'm going to play D1. Oh, I'm not that good at D1. I'm going to go transfer to a D2 school, whatever. Now a lot of players don't have that, but I think there should be some sort of, just to at least add some credibility to the league. NCAA has it, so you want to be the highest level for collegiate roller hockey. You should probably have some sort of restrictions on when kids can play, especially if you want to have GPA credit requirements, stuff like that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Reasonable, I think. Jim, what do you think there? I know this is obviously something that affected your team, so I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat here on that, but just in terms of obviously league implementation.
I think it's an important topic, and look, I know I've had 2 players do that, and coming from both perspectives, I think it's important to talk about it. I do like the idea of looking into creating a rule to prevent it if players are doing it for the wrong reason. That needs to stop for sure. And again, how it was mentioned about credibility in the NCAA, and I like going in that direction. I'm all for that. And I know the ACHA doesn't have it because both of those players, play on the ice team and they were able to play, once they transferred. But I do like the idea of looking into it and seeing if it makes sense. And if that's going to prevent players from transferring for the wrong reasons, then I'm all for it. But at the same time, when these things happen, like last year with PJ and this year with Tyler, of course we're excited about getting players like them. But at the same time, we were very adamant about making sure these guys were doing it for the right reasons. And I'll put it out there right now, like not once did my coaching staff reach out to those 2 players about coming. They came to us and they asked us what we thought, and they gave us the reasons why they wanted to come. And, I think that's important. And, looking from the outside, a lot of people probably don't agree, probably won't believe, but Matt Ketchum, my assistant coach, and myself are very adamant about our players making the right decisions for the right reasons. And we told Tyler and his father straight out, if he was just coming here for a semester just to try to win a championship, we don't want him to come. And we made it very clear that, we don't want something like that to happen. It's not good for Tyler's future, and it's not good for our program. It's not good for our sport. But if he's coming here because he wants to finish school here, he's going to spend a year and a half here, get his degree from here, and wants to play ice hockey and wants to be with his friends, fine, we understand. But if he was coming in for the wrong reasons, we would have been opposed to it. And that's the truth. And I know a lot of people might not believe me right now, but that's the absolute truth. But at the same time, I think it is important, as mentioned, that we do look into a rule to prevent this. It'll make players, think their decision through and make sure they make the right decision. And I'm all for that. If we could figure out what works best, absolutely.
I think that that's all reasonable sentiment, and I think that that's something that would be good overall. Rid of a lot of, like you said, I mean, a lot of it is gonna be perception no matter what. So just being able to know that, I don't know, just to kind of alleviate that and put that to the side is definitely something that I think would be good across the board. And
I think, with where our sport's at right now, I think it's very easy for kids to do that and just to easily transfer. And at the same time, going off topic, I think it's very easy for teams to sign up players for a semester very easily and, sign up for their credits and get away with it. And however they do in school, it doesn't matter. We need to avoid that. We need to get rid of those situations, and we need to figure that out. I don't know what the answers are, but we need to figure that out because, let's face it, it's gone on in the past where teams have signed up players for a semester in the spring, and, it's out there. The rumors are out there, but we need to avoid that. We need to figure out how to avoid those situations.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think everybody wants to talk about transfers, but ultimately you have the same thing is essentially going on if somebody is, signing up for classes and then dropping them. I mean, what's the difference, honestly? If that's what we're kind of talking about is making sure that it's a true collegiate sport, that we're treating it like that. I think that is kind of a no-brainer, that you have to go over both. You gotta do both. So that's good. That's important. That's something that I know what people wanted to have discussed, and I could see that being one that actually does end up being proposed. We'll keep going here and then kind of wind things down. I mean, I know we've got a few. Actually, we got a good comment here. Trevor Scott talked to me, just sent me a text message, and he said the whole transfer thing is tough. I transferred, and I would honestly be upset if I had to sit out. It would get me pretty discouraged watching my friends play when I did the right things by working hard to transfer. So, okay, this is a good point too. If you're transferring from a junior college, does that still apply? Because I think that's part of kind of what we're talking about here.
And to be honest, it's not even just junior college, a transfer from junior college. It's also the fact, what if a student wants to change schools and wants to change majors or wants to change environments? We might have a transfer next fall with one of our great D3 players because he's going to a better program at another school. I mean, how you say, it's hard. It's very difficult to figure that out.
Yeah, I'd also agree. We actually have a transfer coming in as well. He won, and his school hadn't had roller hockey before, so, and he's coming in as a senior, so having him sit out for like his first semester of his senior year, just come back and just play for the spring will be tough. And also coming for the programs and the schools and the academics. So those reasons are all legit and all there. And I think having some sort of other, not even having kids don't even have to prove, say, oh, I'm transferring for X, Y, Z reason. You don't have to write that down. I think the fact that they know that, I'm transferring, I'm sitting out for this one semester, I can still practice, I can still be with the team, I can still go to events, or even make them play on a D3 team if they have a team. That might be an option too. If don't play on the D1 team, play on the lower team, and then in the spring you play on the D1 team. But have some sort of because there's some coaching staff like your own that go through that tell them transfer for the right reasons, but some may not take that extra step. So that little bit of initiative from the league would allow the kids, like, make that kid think twice if he is or is not transferring for the right reasons. Which I feel like it wouldn't happen at this level. Most kids are smart enough to know what is the right reason to transfer to school and what isn't. But going with the credit checks and GPA requirements, I think legitimacy is it just helps the legitimacy of the league when you're going through that administrative checking of players.
And to elaborate on that really quickly, I got kind of some follow up there. You said, what if you transfer to another school for financial aid issues or financial issues? Do you have to sit out for that? Basically kind of echoing the general, transferring from one school to another school, just for roller, it would make sense to, not allow that, but there's a fine line and it's a slippery slope. And I agree with that. I mean, that's tough. So do you just draw the line in the sand, or do you have like an appeals process, which I know they've got, guys that are playing in Europe or whatever have to submit documentation to show they weren't paid and things like that. Like, I mean, that's pretty tough. Anything on that?
I mean, players can say whatever they want about whatever reason they transfer. If a player really wants to transfer to another school for whatever reason, they can write that down and they'll find some way to prove whether it's financial. If they're going from a public to a private school, if there's some with financial aid, if they're going from out of state to in state, it will look better financially. So there's always some way that they can find a way to prove on paper that they're transferring to that school. I wouldn't, but I think that having that line in the sand there kind of makes everyone double check and think twice, and just it puts everyone on the same playing field. I think that way, like, you have an appeals process, then you're leaving it up to the discretion of the board, whoever makes the decision. Then, well, why'd this guy get his appeal accepted? Why'd mine not? You have the line in the sand. You're still able to play at the national event, or you're still able to play next year's national event. So I wouldn't see a whole reason why. Making a kid set a whole year to play, like, that's kind of unreasonable. Kids want to be done in 4 years. Even if you're going that 5th year, like, that's a lot to sit out for a club sport. So
yeah, I don't think you could do it. You definitely can't do a year. I mean, if you're going to do a semester, but yeah, that's tough. That's interesting.
It's just that extra step that the league would have to take to, make itself more legitimate, I'd say.
Yeah, I would agree there. We're gonna go to the voicemail box. We've got Mark Hager, who's one of the Coast to Coasters. He called in, and here's what Mark had to say.
What's up, boys? Mark Hager. I was going to touch on a couple of them here. First off, I'll touch on the GPA requirements. There definitely needs to be something in place, like maybe a minimum 2 or 2.5. In my head, there's been a couple guys that I know of, I'm not going to name names or anything that are going to do it, but there's been times where kids would literally just sign up for classes, meet the credit requirement that the league requires, and then just not even go to class, just literally there to play a role or nothing else. So there's definitely got to be something in there for GPA-wise or something, just to make sure kids are still actually honoring the whole collegiate athlete aspect of it. And then as far as transferring goes, like the transfer eligibility thing, I'm not really sure how to really, I don't really know how to word it, but to like, as far as like kids just transferring schools specifically just to better a school's team in general, I'm not really on board with that. But I mean, say a kid goes from one school to the other strictly because of his education and that's what he's got to do, then I don't see an issue with it. But there's really no way of knowing what a kid's motives is of switching schools. So I'm not sure how you want to like dictate that, and if there's a way to really put a rule in place to avoid kids transferring schools to stack one school's team. That's a hard one to go off of, but I mean, there's a double-edged sword. One kid may be going just for education, and the other kid may be going just for roller. You never really know. Then as far as like the matching pants thing goes, in Division I, you're gonna have, as the rules state, matching helmets, pants, everything. Everything's got to be one certain color, like your school's colors, and it looks great for the league. And then you go into the other divisions, and you got teams with different colored buckies, different pants. I mean, they're the same color and to a point, but they're different pants in general. In my opinion, it should be league-wide, division-wide, matching pants, matching buckets, everything. Just for a strictly appearance thing, it just looks better for the league. It looks more official. It looks just overall better, like I said. So there's my thoughts on those three topics. Do with it as you please. Hope it generates a little bit of a conversation. Take it easy, boys.
So good input there from Mark Hager. No doubt about that. Always bringing good perspective to the table and, bringing up some good points, kind of getting guys thinking about some other angles on this. I think that I think a lot of what he said is true, and you get into that as we kind of had talked about, it's tough to implement. Now, in terms of matching, yeah, I think at a minimum we got to start with pants at the D4 and D3 level. I don't think that helmets, and at least, you don't have to have perfectly matching gloves, but just not making sure that you don't have gloves that aren't completely the wrong color, aren't that far off from your team uniforms. I think that that's a fair compromise to start, and then maybe over the course of a couple of years you can implement that to include D2. But I mean, even in D2, like a lot of the teams, you're talking about maybe one or two kids a team that don't have that helmet. Now, I understand like money's tight and maybe that one kid can't afford it, and I don't want to, at risk of sounding too socialistic, but I mean, at that point, if that's the team requirement and you've got a guy who can't afford it, everyone can throw in an extra $5-10 and make sure that that kid has a helmet. And I don't think that that's, it doesn't need to be out in the open. Like, here's the helmet fund. You can kind of get that in your, build that into your team dues, if you will, build a little bit of a buffer so that way you can take care of those things. But there are ways to do that. Well, I'm going to go to kind of the last couple of comments, make sure that we get everybody that had texted in. I'm pretty sure that we've got mostly everything that we were hoping to cover. The only other thing would be forfeits, and this is something I want to touch on real quick, and then we'll get out of here. But I think forfeits are something that came up earlier this year. You had in the West, you had a team that forfeited some games and ended up getting a spot at the conference championships on a tiebreaker. I want to say, because their goals against were or goal differential was not what it would have been most likely. Obviously you don't know for sure, but based on previous results against the teams that they would have faced that weekend, their goal differential most likely would not have been better than it was by taking the 1-0 loss. So if there are a couple of different ways you could do this. If there's a tiebreaker, any team that has forfeited games automatically loses that tiebreaker would be one way to do that. Another way would be that forfeits are 10-0 losses instead of 1-0 losses, or something along the lines of that, to really, make sure that you're penalizing that. Because I've seen teams come with 4 guys and a skater and net before to make sure that they don't forfeit games. Some conferences have rules that if you forfeit, you automatically forfeit your postseason eligibility, or some variants of that. I don't want to say it matter of fact, but maybe you forfeit at 2 events and you lose that. So to kind of close it up, Sean, what are your thoughts there? Is that something that should maybe be thought of, or something that could be implemented to discourage. I don't think anyone's necessarily forfeiting on purpose, but it sucks when you're going to all your games and you're trying to do things the right way, and you have this tiebreaker here, and clearly, in your head you're thinking, I don't think it would have played out like this had that team gone and played. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think forfeits are tough. I think if you forfeit, I think forfeits definitely should disqualify from postseason play, especially if it comes down to a tiebreaker. I don't think there's a need for that. Paid the league dues, you should show up and play all your games, regardless of whatever reason it is. At the very least, if you forfeit, you should probably, if it come down to a tiebreaker, you just get pushed to the bottom of the barrel, and you're not going to win that tiebreaker. Because if we have one team that shows up for every game, even if they lose by like 10 goals in one game, and then you have a team that forfeited and took that 1-0 loss, it just doesn't look the same. I wouldn't say that 10-0 loss, because obviously you see scores that can be more than 10 goals, and there's no sort of mercy rule that would give us that sort of set standard. So I would say tiebreaker wise, just if you have forfeits, that breaks the tie right there. That would probably be like the first tiebreaker.
Yeah, I think
just discourage teams from doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I think part of that is you've got these teams that are willing to go to extraordinary lengths to make sure that they don't have those forfeits. But, on the flip side of that, you've also got, sometimes teams are forfeiting because they've got ACHA and they're not going to have all their guys. They're not going to have their good guys. It can get messy, and you have to kind of figure out a way to shut that down and make sure that isn't happening. The chances of it happening, is it going to happen every season? Probably not, but it might happen in the seedings for sure. I think that is something that could come into play. It just happened to be that this year that seeding was the last playoff spot. So I agree with what you're saying. I think that's a good one as well. So there's a lot on the table here. We're going to probably draft some of these up. If anybody heard something they like or is wanting to get something submitted, because as I mentioned, this is all discussion at this point. We have the rule change proposal template is up on the website. We'll put it up here on the screen once more so that you guys can see it. But this is not stuff that is going to just happen on its own. This is a players league, and we've got to make sure that this stuff is done by us if we want to see this stuff come to fruition. So it's not a very complicated process. If you're adjusting a rule, you got to find that rule in the league operations manual or the rule book, and you put that in this box here that says current wording is, and then if that rule doesn't exist, then you don't have to worry about that, and kind of go through the motions and get this done. But to kind of close things up, we'll do one last check for comments and hopefully keep the discussion going online as well. But there's a few days left here to where this stuff could have some or if you want to help or if you need help, I should say, either want to help us with a couple that we're thinking about doing, or if you need some help, get in touch with us. You know where to find us if you're watching this. And we'd love to be able to do some of that. So one other comment we got, Wesley Guthrie from Grand Valley State, who is, I'll give him a shout out because he's working to get a team going at the University of Wisconsin, which would be awesome and really good for the sport. We're seeing the college prospect camp there in a couple of weeks. Peter Dale's putting on first ever college roller hockey prospect camp. That's going to be hosted at Concordia College there. And I believe that's correct, but out in Milwaukee, and that's going to be really cool and good for the sport, and really good to get some exposure to the guys that are really excited about playing college roller. But shout out to Wes, who's working hard to make sure that comes to fruition, as he'll be a grad student there. He said reduce power plays to 1:30 instead of 2 minutes like NCRHA and double IHF. That's not a bad idea. I mean, I know NCRHA does it specifically because of the game time length. It's obviously a shorter game. You got 24 minutes versus 36, and that's kind of the rationale there. But it's still 36 is still less than, say, 45 in an ice game that you might see in, say, a beer league or, in youth hockey or midgets or juniors. You're looking at anywhere from, 15-minute periods to 20. You might see 17 or something like that. So I'll throw it to you, Sean. What are your thoughts on that? Is it proportionally make sense to do it in college roller? Or is that something that is kind of more for the tournaments?
I think it's more for the tournaments. I would actually say make the periods longer, just make them 15-minute periods, 45-minute games. 2 or 3 12-minute periods are still really short games, especially for guys coming from midgets or high school that were playing 15, 16-minute periods for ice hockey at least.
That is tough though, right? Because then you have
and more rank time, and then this whole schedule gets shifted, and you're playing at 6 in the morning. You're playing, and you're ending your day at maybe 2 o'clock at night for some events. At least
right.
That's what we'd see.
Having that short bench is no longer, a team with, say, 6 guys may not want to participate at that point. But I mean, I agree. Ideally, I think that would be awesome, and maybe that's something.
From a big bench, having 15 guys on a roster.
Having 15 guys, see, and I'll play devil's advocate, and I'll say, find a few more and get that D3 or D4 team going, and then you guys are set.
It's been great.
It's been and that's cool, and it's been awesome to see what you guys have been able to do at UMass with the ice hockey kind of following in background, and now getting some more roller guys into it. Obviously, I know you're a roller guy yourself, so yeah, I think that we had a lot of good ideas being thrown around here tonight, and there's, as mentioned before, going to be some of these things being proposed. Now, I will show you real quick the college roller hockey prospect camp, because if you haven't seen this, it's pretty cool. I'll pull that up so you guys can see, but here's the general gist of it. I don't know if it's gonna let me pull it up. Here we go. So yeah, they're gonna have this going on in a couple of weeks out in Wisconsin. I don't know if here we'll see if there's some pictures of the farm, but it's pretty cool what Peter Dale's been doing out in Wisconsin. And he basically took this old farm, this barn, and turned it into a training center. And he's really been growing the sport out. Farm Tough has had a ton of teams at the big national tournaments, and now even the regional tournaments, and just doing a great job of growing the game, growing the sport, and getting more guys into roller, especially obviously ice hockey being big out there. So I think it's really, really going to be a good thing for college roller hockey that this is happening, and I'm looking forward to it. I know a lot of other guys are as well. I don't know if what we were trying to show earlier was coming up or not, but this is kind of a little view of the barn and of the farm that Pete's got. But looking forward to that. That should be really cool. And then we'll have some coast to coast teams as well this summer at some of the tournaments, so keep an eye out for that stuff. But thanks everybody that got in on the discussion. I think that having a group discussion on stuff like this is crucial and really helps us kind of move forward and advance ideas that are gonna benefit the league in the long run, and hopefully grow the sport and make this something that continues to be successful, and building off of Fargo, which I think was a great event and a great little taste of roller hockey for North Dakota, in an area that doesn't have a lot of roller hockey and is now kind of looking to get themselves involved with the sport. because of that event. 50 kids out there at the Mission Hockey College. Pretty cool to see. And a lot of people, I think, that walked away with a really positive impression of the NCRHA and of roller hockey and collegiate roller hockey in general. So, Sean, any final thoughts to add here?
No, it was great discussion. A lot of good ideas, a lot of good feedback. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, always. And I think that we'll be doing some more of these roundtables over the summer, as well as hopefully we had a really good discussion with Lee Strophe, and we'll probably play that clip as we get out of here, but on the way out. But something that we had talked about last night was getting a little bit of a roundtable going throughout the league that to try to get some ideas going, have every team send one player representative, and then if they have a non-player representative that they would want to send as well, then that would be an option, and kind of working together to bring ideas to the table and figure out the best way to do those things.
Really get involved with the players, coaches.
So we'll play that here on the way out. But thanks for checking out our show, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon. For Sean, I'm Kevin. We'll see you guys later.
Take care.
But I would love to see them really get involved with the players, coaches throughout the entire league, and do like a meeting to go or something like that, where you get some face-to-face time and do a 2-hour sit and meet and talk about these things, instead of and having something transparent where we could see faces, we could see Brendan, we could see Rob, we could see all the league directors, and everybody bring something to the table if they want to.
I think that's a great idea, and it just comes down to, and I've had that conversation with Rob and Brennan and some of these guys, and Jeff Nolan, and I mean, you go down the list. They're all about it. The question is, when you do it at nationals? Obviously, everybody's right, and that's where it gets tough. And so it's like, maybe you could do it online. Maybe that's a way to do it. But yeah, I think that really is what it comes down to, because I don't see many teams. There would be a few, I think, that would be able to pull it off, but I don't see many teams willing to send a coach or a team representative or both, which it should probably be. There should be a player and if you want to bring a coach or somebody from the school as well. Right, exactly. But there should obviously be player representation there too, with it being, a club sport. So it's like, where does that? Yeah, where do you do it? I don't see many teams traveling for something like that, unfortunately.
I totally agree. I think with technology nowadays, it all could be done on Skype, or I know how the NCRHA does their introduction. They do a great job, Borg and Burke, how he does that. He presents it, the rule changes, gives kudos to all the teams and the NCRHA. And it really kicks off our season in a positive. Then we have a meeting in Feasterville. So, I mean, it's different. Not every division is like that, but it's a good mirror maybe the other divisions can do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I know Mike Burke does a really good job, all the guys in the ECRHA, with their presentation of, how they're kind of getting teams ready for the beginning of the season and stuff. And that might be something that, could be emulated and maybe copied across the board. But
or invite everybody to that meeting.
Right.
That's a separate meeting, but getting back to where, let's maybe something like the first week in June, when all colleges have graduated, coaches have had a few weeks to digest and, maybe forget about hockey for a week or two, and then kind of you're always out there recruiting, but then have a meeting in June with everybody, and if schools elect not to attend, that's on them.
Yeah.
But I think more teams out of the 20, I know there's 24 D1 teams, is probably 30 two teams, and some of them are, and then you got D3, so the representation from D1 to D3, I think you could really have a positive meeting and get those fans out there, good, bad, or indifferent.
I think so too, and yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to. Is you just need guys that want to just throw ideas at the board and not feel like there's a bad idea in the room, because then you're gonna get the best ideas. And I completely agree, and I know there are gonna be some guys from the league listening to this later on, so we'll make sure that gets passed along. I think that's something that could still, potentially happen in this offseason. I don't think it's too late in the game. So.
Oh, I agree, definitely. So I don't want to take up all your time, and I hope other people call in and tweet at you and whatever they do, and and just keeping it positive.
Appreciate it. Well, hey, thanks for your call, Lee, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you at some of the tournaments over the summer. I'll be around, and look forward to getting together. We'll have a nice cold one together.
Sounds like a plan, man.
All right, Mike. Take care.
Hey, you too.
Bye-bye. Bye.